Good afternoon, everyone. We'll continue with the MySQL tutorial first for this week. So we mentioned about MySQL will be used for our instruction for demonstration purpose when we learn the SQL especially. And also we recommend using MySQL in the course project. Of course, you can use some other DBMS like IBM's DB2, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server, but MySQL will be recommended just because it is free, and of course MySQL was acquired by Oracle, so it also has a commercial version, but MySQL community version is available for you to use for this course project, and also it's enough for our course. Okay. So for this tutorial, I already released yesterday, and here I want to just go over it quickly. Overall, the installation should be no problem, but here maybe I want to point out some important things in case you may have some confusion part. If you already installed correctly, you can skip this part. We'll just use maybe several minutes to finish this part. So basically, you will just go to this is MySQL official website to the download, and then you can download from here. For example, this is download. Okay, so this is MySQL, and then download. You go down to the bottom. You have the community download. That means it's free, and then you can click it. And then you can go to this website. So this page will give you some information about you can install maybe some applications like a server or like a cluster and some router share and so on. You can also install some components like connectors, but for us we may want to install them together. So for this one I use the Windows as an example because I choose that one for my case. So that means we go back here, since I already captured all the screens. So you select this one. After you finish this one, you can also install the MySQL for Visual Studio. You may want to just develop your code, your application in Visual Studio. At the same time, you will call MySQL together. So you can go back to here and then finish the next. I only mentioned here, but you can do by yourself. So after you click this link, you will go to this one, and then you select the Microsoft Windows. Okay, for this version, for this operating system. Of course, if you use Linux, and then you can just choose accordingly. Okay, and then I will recommend that you download the first one. Should be okay. It's better maybe because sometimes I found this one maybe has an issue. So choose this one, and then it will promote whether you want to create a Oracle MySQL account. It's up to you. Okay, just read this one. So if you don't want to do that, you can do no thanks, and then select products. So that's next one. So for this one, you will just choosing the products. Maybe here I want to mention a little bit. So let's go to this one, install. And then you choose this one, and then no thanks. So after this one you click. So for my case, it's already installed all of these things. So what I want to mention is that here there's a search. Okay, there's a search promote window, so you can just choose accordingly. For example, you want to choose the 34th or current bundle, or just pre-release current GA, like these things. This different license, different version, so you can choose accordingly. So for my case, if you cannot find some components, you can try some others. For example, like maybe if you want to do JDBC for the Java connector, so you may need to choose any and so on. So accordingly, so that means it will apply the filter, and then you will find the things here. Okay, things here. So this you just include all the things you want to have. If you, for example, like in my case, I choose these things. Okay, SQL Server, that's the most. Of course, you need to have the server, okay, because you will install, you will just save the database on the MySQL server, and then Workbench is for you to design the database, and the shell. So this one is just like some commands. Router is also just help you to connect the database, and the JDBC, ODBC, C++, connector, Python connector. So all of these connectors. So you decided maybe if you want to use only one, you can just choose one. Maybe you want to try the others, you just install all of them, since the size maybe not that big. Okay, and then the last one are the documents. Okay, so after that you just continue. So it may, if you already installed before, maybe, or if not installed before, they will ask you to choose this thing. So then one is the installation directory, the other one is the data directory. So if you want to use the both at the same one, then you can do next. If you want to choose them as the different folders, you can just select accordingly, and then click. For me, I just click next. So they will just download, and after that will install. So you reach this user interface, click execute, and then it will install all the things: server, Workbench, shell, router, different connectors, and the documents. Okay, so including samples and the examples. And then after that, you can just continue with next. Main is next, but sometimes we need to set a password. I will point out. So next for the product configuration, and this is for this configuration part. So for this one, you can just use the default one. Okay, if you want to use some other ones, I think the separate option here. Okay, if you want to use lambda pipe or shared memory, you can choose accordingly. But here I think we use the TCP/IP. That's the default one. So later when we talk about ODBC, JDBC, we also use the socket. So that one will based on the IP and the port number. So this is IP address and the port number. So we have these two together. We define your server location. So you install the server, maybe also the client in the same computer. Doesn't matter. We mentioned it before. Okay? You can use the just the sudo one. For example, 127.0.0.1 as the IP address. So after that, the port number just want to differentiate which surface. So for this one is like a database surface. So the port number. Of course, you can change the port number. So it's up to you. But when you connect the server, you also need to know the port number. Okay. Then next. So for here, we want to set the password. So this password is for the root. Okay, that means root account. That means for the database, we have a root account. So it's just like administrator. So please do not forget. This is important. So also save the password as well, because later you need to log in into the database, connect the database. You need to input the password. So after you input the password, you will check it whether it's strong. Check it is strong password, and then next, after that it will connect this one, standard this one, and then next to continue. Okay, execute. So all of these ones are simple. Okay, simple ones. So it will just starting the server. Okay, starting server. So that means configuration, server, router, so, and then next it will be router. Okay, router we currently can just use the default one. Later, if we want to change something, we do use the router. We can go back to set again. Okay, basically this one is like a connector server. And then after that, click finish. Okay, and then we ask you to input the password now. And also after you input the password, they will ask you to check. So here, and then check, then it will open some simple test, and you can now use the MySQL now. So if it doesn't promote this user interface, you can search here. So you just search MySQL, or you can just go from here. So you can find that we have Workbench, command line, and shell. So these are the 3 important things we want to mention. You click them. For example, shell, you can just input the commands, as well as the other one I didn't show here, maybe, yeah, this one. You can also put this one. Okay, this one is the commands, in fact it's command window, but this shell we're just using the MySQL directly. Okay, and the Workbench is the important one. So for this one, when we design the database, you will just use this one to create the ER diagram, and based on the ER diagram, you can just automatically reduce them into relational, just into schemas, into tables. Okay, so for this one, you can just for example, you can connect the database, for example, like this, standard local and the root. So okay, so for here, cut, and then so you can just familiar with the installation of that, familiar with the usage of this one based on the menu I provided in the document. So that's the here using this one, the tutorial. It has a lot of information for you to learn. So currently, I think we may just ask you to install the SQL, and when we reach the design stage, we may just help you to utilize this one. But anyway, you can just learn by yourself. Okay? For this, like MySQL help and so on. Okay, this is the things I want to mention. Just after installed, you go to here to use the components there. And another important thing is that I think in the book, in the chapter 3, in the end of the chapter, we also mentioned the last time, they are mentioned about different resources. Okay, different resources. So one resource is that maybe, for example, when we talk about the queries, okay, we may want to execute some of them. For example, the university one and something. So we want to try to learn them. In fact, we have online version. This is from the W3 schools. So this online version will help you to test some SQL queries. Okay? SQL queries, for example, like select well, like this thing. Okay? You can just come here, and then they can just try. Okay? Run this one. Run the SQL will give you the results. So this is the sample database, and this is the results. Okay, sample database maybe in the other one. So this is the results, and you can also try different ones. You can go through this one. Okay, go through this one. If you don't know where it is, you can just search. Okay, Control F to search to find it. Okay. For example, like we want to find a case, you can select case, and then you can get the syntax and also demo database and examples. For example, here we have the case well then, and else, and this is and then you can try to run it to see what's the result. Okay? So they will assign these values depending on this one. So it give the result. It's under 30 equal is 30 or less than 30 and so on. Okay. So this is another important resource I want to mention before we continue with the slides. So go to here to try your SQL commands. Okay, when you want to learn some syntax about. So I think it already includes most important ones. That's enough for us. Okay, this is the tutorial and the important information I want to mention, and then we'll continue with the next thing. So last week we already finished almost half of the SQL chapter 3. So after we finish this one, I think we'll finish this one in the first portion, first video, and after that we'll continue with the database design, because I mentioned that we want to switch the order. This is important for you to start your project as soon as possible. So by the way, I found we have maybe several students have not joined any group. So I will send an announcement to deal with this thing. So my initial idea is that I will send those students the names to each other, and then you can group together by some deadline. If you don't group by deadline, I may just assign you to a group. Okay. Or I found some group maybe it's only one person, so we can also just send it to those students. Okay, let's continue with the next. So last time we talked about basically SQL basic structure and additional basic operations, set operations, non-values, and then we are continuing with the aggregate functions. So aggregate function means that we want to find the statistics about some interesting data. For example, like the summation, average, median, mean, max, like these things. Okay. So the functions operate on the multi-set of values. That means it's not only one value. Of course, you can do aggregate. That means it can do arithmetic operations like a min, max, like this thing, right? Or count the number. So that means we can perform. So it's many, or that means we have multiple tuples. Of course, if there's only one, it's also applicable. But mainly we just want to do a statistic value. Okay, multi-set values of a column of a relationship. Usually it will apply on one column. Of course, we can also apply, for example, I want to count how many records in total for the students. Okay, that's also possible. That means for this one is like we still like apply on columns, but apply on all the columns instead of all rows, okay, as a whole. Okay, so that means the idea is similar.